Holy crap, Spock is shouty. Hello everybody, it's JD, and welcome back to the Star Trek Project. Today, we're doing episode 3, which is actually a pilot episode. Season 1, episode 3 is called Where No Man Has Gone Before. And, that comes from Kirk's introduction in the credits. But this episode is kind of unusual because it features some different characters and it's quite obviously not following episodes 1 and 2. Before I begin, let me just warn you, there will be spoilers. So in this episode, the Enterprise goes to the edge of the galaxy and finds an emergency transponder from the SS Valiant. And they find out that there's been some kind of unusual ESP activity from that ship, and everyone died. But when they pass the barrier at the edge of the galaxy, Lieutenant Commander Gary Mitchell starts experiencing some of these ESP capabilities. But he goes a little overboard and pretty much proclaims that he is a god. And so Kirk, who is one of his best friends, must make a very difficult decision. Some of the first things that will be obvious when you watch this episode is that there are quite a few differences. Some of the characters are different. No McCoy and no Rand. There's a different doctor, Dr. Mark Piper. And Sulu is still there, but he's wearing a blue uniform. Spock is now wearing a yellow uniform. All the red uniforms are gone, being replaced by these pale yellow uniforms. And this is also the episode where we are introduced to Scotty. So he was in this pilot episode, but he wasn't in the next two episodes, or episodes 1 and 2. Two key members of this cast are Lieutenant Commander Gary Mitchell and Dr. Elizabeth Denner. Now, these two are characters who, well, since we're talking about spoilers here, these two become the gods, and they do die at the end. However, these two actors are actually quite well known. Gary Mitchell is played by Gary Lockwood, who happened to be Dr. Frank Poole in the 2001 movie. And Dr. Denner's actress is Sally Kellerman, who was Margaret Houlihan in the MASH movie. And there are some differences in Spock. His eyebrows look different. Again, he smiles in this episode, so he shows emotions. But it is established that he has human ancestry. In the scene that Spock smiled, I did notice something interesting in Kirk's collar. You could notice a 20th century zipper. I had no idea they were still using those in the 23rd century. ESP is a main focus of this episode, as it is in episode 1 and to a degree in episode 2. So there's this theme of ESP going through Star Trek. And I thought, does that really happen a lot? But then I think about Next Generation and we have Betazoids who are telepathic. And also Vulcans are telepathic. So this ESP thing does appear a lot in Star Trek. Also, we see a couple of medical reports for Denner and Mitchell, and they talk about their ESP rating. But that's not what's interesting about these reports. They show them on the screen on the bridge, and you'll immediately notice that they are typed with a typewriter, and sections are underlined with pencil or pen. So low tech. And more on the technology that is used in Star Trek. They use tapes, which are about the size of a 3.5-inch floppy disk. But it just seems really outdated. And the communicators that they use in this episode are clear plastic. But throughout Star Trek, the original Star Trek, they use these communicators that are shaped very similarly to a flip phone or a clamshell phone. And I guess it's quite possible that that style of cell phone was inspired by Star Trek. I mentioned earlier that there is a barrier at the edge of the galaxy. And this is one of those things about early Star Trek that kind of annoy me. See, I have a degree in astronomy and physics, and there's absolutely nothing like that at the edge of the galaxy. There's no known physical phenomenon that would account for it. So this is just something totally made up, of course. In an interesting parallel with the first episode of The Next Generation, Mitchell and Kirk had been to the planet Deneb 4, where the people there had ESP capabilities. Well, in episode 1 of The Next Generation, they go to Deneb 4. And who shows up? Q. He's pretty much godlike, you know? Kind of like what Mitchell and Denner become. So I found that very interesting. And one more thing I noticed. The color of green in the sick bay. It's just awful. Who chose that? So what did I think of this episode? It was great. This should have been the first episode. I don't know why it wasn't. I guess it was just NBC's decisions. They put up the Man Trap first and then Charlie X, which were kind of weak episodes. But this episode was very strong. The acting was actually quite good. I thought Gary Lockwood and Sally Kellerman were very good in this episode, especially Lockwood. And they made this episode. The action was quite good too, and we actually get to see Kirk fighting, which, you know, is a joke. A lot of people think his fighting skills are very unusual, like especially with his double-fisted attack, you know, like going like this. And his full body slam, just jumping into people. Very strange fighting methods. I wonder who his teacher was. This episode goes into absolute power corrupts absolutely. Mitchell seemed like a good enough guy when he was normal, but I could see the arrogance in him. But once he had these powers, he probably thought, now I can do anything I want. I will show everyone I can do everything. He was going to take over the world. I guess he'd be that kind of person. Or, I guess later on he did say he pretty much wanted to wipe out everyone who was lower than him. So I guess he and Denner would create the new human race. In the end, I would give this episode 4.5 stars out of 5. It was very good. And like I said, it should have been the first. What did you think about this episode? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you like this video, please click on thumbs up and please subscribe. To watch episode 2, Charlie X, please click right here. And to watch episode 4, you can click right here. And if you want to watch the whole playlist, click right down here. Thanks for watching. Live long and prosper.